Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Friendly Differences podcast. As usual, this is Baram Yu and my co host.
Solid Blue Sister.
And we have just finished another great episode on religion. But I'm actually thinking maybe we should rename it Religion and Spirituality or something. Because as you'll soon see, we had Roxanne, who is the owner of the YouTube channel Odyssey of Ascension. And we also had Natalie, who some of our Podbean friends may know, Spirit and Coffee, who does a daily show. Usually in the UK, it's roughly about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I don't know, I think that's 6 in the morning Pacific time. So maybe a bit early for you, Solid. But it is, I connected with her. I interviewed her on my show back in October, November last year. And listening to Roxanne and Natalie tonight was mind blowing, to say the least. It's like it provides a different outlook on life. And me, as a conspiracy theorist skeptic, I was looking for those things, and I actually couldn't really find anything to kind of push back on, because to me, it's a better way of looking at life. Religion for me has been an on-off kind of thing, and listening to Natalie and Roxanne was a breath of fresh air, to say the least. So, Solid, what did you think about tonight's show?
I thought it was a really good show. I thought it was interesting. As I said, when we first met Roxanne last week, I was like, and then I listened to some of her YouTube videos. And then today, as we, got into it, I was starting to understand more. A lot of it still went over my head. Um, but I understood where she was coming from. And then when Natalie came on, it's like the two of them kind of clicked. And what Natalie was saying and what Roxanne was saying, I was like, okay. But I still have my faith. I'm always going to have that. I still believe in God. I believe in the Bible. But they did give you another perspective on how they approach things. And I especially liked when they both said the whole who's right and who's wrong, because that is something that I do think. If someone has a belief on something, you can't say I'm right, can't say you're right, wrong, or whatever. But they did give you a different way
Mm-hmm.
to look at things and even look at the world, I guess.
Yeah. We were also joined by Sava, a friend of ours, and we'll have her on for another show sometime down the line. But it was a really good show. We had a lot of comments this time. Um, yeah,
And I do want to say one thing, because we never really talk about people who are in the chat. And the chat was busy. And follower of Jesus Christ, if you're listening to this now, you had a lot of interesting comments. So at some point, I would love for you to come up, because a lot of times when you're typing things in the chat, it kind of gets lost in what you want to say. But he
mhm,
had, strong, he or she had strong points and strong views. So,
mhm,
I just wanted to also just
yeah,
say the people in the chat, thank you very much for coming and,
yeah.
sitting
We,
and
we are we're always looking for new guests. We do have a list, and we have people that we want to save for certain shows. So more the merrier to have on the list. If you feel you want to come on, just get your name down, and we'll reach out to you, say if this show interests you, you can come on. But we're trying to keep it to four so that we can
Mhm.
have two seats empty for people calling in at the end. I think that kind of works better, especially when you have people that can talk. It gives them enough time to get their points over. But again, another really good show. A show that I didn't think that would be, you know, for me, I like the ones that you can really get stuck into. And religion's kind of one of those. It's kind of I'll do me, you do you, and we share each other's beliefs. But tonight was eye opening, and I think, not to paraphrase a follower of Christ, if you're listening, but where I come from, that kind of rhetoric that Natalie and Roxanne in particular was talking about, I can see where maybe follower of Christ being probably a follower of Christ in the Bible, this kind of idea is not what the Bible teaches. It's kind of like more strict, to say a lesser word. So maybe it's like you're not being put into a box with what Roxanne and Natalie was saying. It's kind of like you do you. Whereas with the Bible, it's very strict. You must follow this. You must do this. That's the kind of pushback I think that follower of Christ might have been saying. And I did notice the comment at the end saying, when I think it was when I asked what would you call it, and he wrote Satanism,
Mm.
and I can see that as well. I'd love to have a Satanist on the show to discuss that, because I've listened to a couple in my journey, and it sounds appealing, and that sounds crazy, especially if you haven't looked into Satanism. That the following Satan would be appealing, but when it's the lower levels, and I mean, I know people in my immediate life that are Satanists, and it sounds about energy. It just sounds about experiencing life. And I obviously was trying to fish out whether that was what Roxanne would describe it as, and obviously it wasn't. So I apologize for that. But again, this is probably more a call out to any Satanists out there that would like to come on and kind of tell us their beliefs, and we'll do a show again on that kind of stuff. Um, yeah.
And yeah, I was just going to just wrap this part up and say that anyone who has an interest in coming on the show, reach out to us at friendlydifferences@gmail.com. And,
Mhm.
we respond and we'll see where it goes.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Solid. Thanks as always.
Thank you. We are live. Okay. So,
Okay. Hi, guys. Welcome to another installment of the Friendly Differences podcast. Tonight we have Roxanne, who I'm really excited to have, and my co host, Solid Blue, as always. And tonight's show, we are going to be speaking about religion. What that entails, let's just see, because everyone, there's loads of religions out there. I have my own views on religion that I've picked up over the last few years, and pretty much again, when you go into school, you're taught religion from a young age, and I could get into that. I'll start with. We'll go around the room. We'll give each other's opening statements. We're actually waiting on a fourth. Natalie might be joining us from Spirit and Brew, which is running a little late, so we might have a guest later on in the show. But as always, keep your comments coming in the chat. We are live on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. So again, there are seats available towards the last 15 minutes of the show. We might invite you on to the show to give your saying. But Solid, I'll let you start with your opening statement on religion. Yeah.
okay. I grew up, I was baptized. I grew up learning about God, the Bible. I do have a strong belief in the Bible, but I'm not a Bible thumper. And when I say that, I don't mean that I go around telling everybody, hey, on, Matthew 4, whatever. I'm not one of those. But I did grow up in the church. I was baptized Methodist, went to a Lutheran school, kindergarten through 12th grade. And then the Lutheran religion wasn't for me. I was, by the time I got into high school, I was going to Lutheran church mainly because I was going to this Lutheran school, whatever. But Lutherans were very close to Catholics, and I did not believe a lot of the Catholic religion. So I got away from it a little bit, away from the Lutheran part of it. And now I don't really identify with any particular religion, but it may sound strange, but I still believe in the Bible. I do believe in Father, Son, Holy Ghost. I do believe that at the end of time or whatever, God will come down, whoever you believe God will be, whatever, and he'll ask us how we lived our life or why we lived our life this or that way. I do believe that there is a higher being that we as humans have to answer to. So.
Okay, and I should have introduced Roxanne a little bit better. Roxanne, I mean, you could do it yourself, but Roxanne is the owner of the channel Odyssey of Ascension. She has 6.57 thousand subscribers and 740 videos, which I'm led to believe dates back to 2013. So that's very impressive. We spoke to Roxanne last week for a 15, 20 minute, just a meet and greet like we usually do with our guests, because I know a lot of people can be a bit, wary about coming on to other people's shows in case you get like a gotcha moment, like we're trying to, and we very early realized that Roxanne's message and the way that she speaks it is very interesting. And I've heard a little bit about this kind of stuff in my journey, and I'm really interested because it sounds amazing. It sounds different. It sounds, I don't know. Anyway, without further ado, here's Roxanne. So would you like to give your opening statement on religion?
Okay. I didn't know. My first time on the show. Thank you first, both of you, for inviting me. It's always a good opportunity to share yourself as a human. So my take on religion is just it's a part of the experience. Maybe we can look at something different right now, all of us, just for a moment. So stave off religion as a constant and a standard for just but a moment. And let's look at ourselves as more of a collective. If you look at one of the greatest collectives on earth, the bees and the ants, and those ideas work as a unison, not for any particular goal. That's how humans see them. Humans see them as a goal. Humans interpret everything, and everything that we know is through a human experience, because that's all we know is human. We don't know anything else. So everything is our interpretation through the human experience. So if we look at subjectively, I look at the bees work as a collective. And if humanity can imagine themselves as a collective in an experience, then we can start not working to divide each other, but unite each other. And religions, for me, divide. But division is what we know of. Division is all we know. We're born less than, because a book said so. Because a book said there's a bigger God than us. So we have to do and work our way back. So here's a guy that's unconditional love, guy or girl. I think it's androgynous anyway. I think men and female is a part of the experience, and we all encompass both of those parts as an expression of the moment, not standardizing time, but that's relevance of each subjective universe discovering themselves. That's, of course, not a standard, just like religion is not a standard. But since in the idea of separation or not knowing you are part of a collective, and I'm not talking about, hello, Natalie.
Hi.
I'm not talking about necessarily a collective of humanity, but we'll keep it in that scope for right now. So we are beings of a collective, creators. And in this world that we're in right now, we forgot everything. And so we create ways to know ourselves. And to me, of course, it's my point of view. No one can share my point of view. We can sit here and objectively agree on something, but we do not divide, or we do not have a point of view that's shareable. We're all our own unique truth. Truth lies in the eye of the beholder. Kingdom of heaven lies within. One man's trash is another man's treasure. These things are not scripture. These are understandings of ourselves. So if we look at religion as this one's right and this one's right, and the only thing that I know in my history is the Christian nation has killed more people than war. More people have died in the name of religion than anything else. We slaughter people because of religion, and then other religions slaughter people. And it's not wrong. You know why it's not wrong? Because nobody dies. And my knowing, and I don't have a belief because it's not debatable and it's not negotiable. My knowing is that everyone is eternal. And we are creation. We are creators experiencing a wonderful idea of human. A place where we can go and separate ourselves and not know that we are part of the collective of one and all. That we are a single idea that doesn't know anything. And so therefore, on this wonderful planet, we get the endless unconditional experience. I can be born a man and feel like a woman. I can be born with autism. I can be born a Kardashian, and I can be born in the ghetto in the worst slums in India. I can be born in Cameroon, and I can be born anywhere I want. And there's no one pointing the direction for me. Because if a God was in charge, he's an absentee landlord. And if I see 63 absolute, devout women spend their entire lives and the entire church drops on their head and kills these people that have spent their entire life, then I have to question God's mysterious plan. And I started doing that in 1988. And I start seeing that there's only a story here. And we relate to that story through truths. And the division of those truths are according to the coveting ideas of our own self. I was born in a religious family, but not devout religion. My mom was Greek Orthodox. We went to church now and again. My dad, they would go. Later in life, when they're getting closer to their death, they seem to get more religion. And religion is not wrong. You know what it is? It's an experience. If I go to Six Flags over Texas and I choose to ride the Batman roller coaster, it's an experience. And when I was on it, I was myself experiencing that ride. And when I leave it, then I'm walking through the park. And then when I go to the bumper cars, I'm doing that. So whether I'm incarnating as an Arcturian or an Andromedan or a Zeta Reticuli or a Draconian or a human is irrelevant. I'm changing the chapters, but I'm still the same story. I'm a single point of consciousness knowing myself forever. And this idea of religion is a way home. So let's look at the clues. Let's all look at a clue that a lot of people in the world don't pay attention to. So there was this wonderful age, and the age right of the Egyptians. They were the dominating, but they were the Mecca. And what did they have? They had many gods, lots of gods, gods of this, gods of that, gods of this, gods of that. Wonderful gods. And then what happens if we need to know we're God? We can't have lots of gods. We got to have one God. So here comes Abraham. And in the age of Taurus, we sacrifice the bull deity. And then we have one God, God of Abraham. And then 2,000 years later, no. Now we need the God outside to become the God inside. As above, as below. Age of Pisces. Here comes Christ. Here comes the silver cord. Now not only God is outside of us, but God's in the heart of man. And now here we are in the age of Aquarius. And that's the water bearer. So now not God is outside. Now God is inside. And now I'm God. And you're God. You don't have to call it God if that shakes you. How arrogant it is. Well, let me ask you a question. How arrogant was it for the Christians to go against the idea of that entire nation that was the one true God and say, no, you're not the true God. The Christ conscience is the true God. It's the new age. Imagine how scared they were. Imagine how many of them died. How many of them were crucified because they spoke their truth. Now here comes a new truth. What do you think? We're going to get it right and keep it the same? How mundane and boring it is if we all drove white cars, and how mundane is it if we were all the same people? We're not the same people. We're diversity. We're expression of the possibilities of creation. We're not the conformity to whoever's in power at the time and who has the biggest guns and who inflicts the most pain and who takes the most land. That was the British, and the British got wiped out. You think America's going to be around forever as a superpower? No.
No.
Every empire will crumble. We're evolving. That's not right or wrong, and it's not scary. It's what we are. So religion is a point of experience to help us understand ourselves. There are gods. There are gods, and they're right in front of you. Do you ever think about if you went to the mirror and say, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me"? You think that would maybe change the context a little bit? But not in the way of selfish, not at the expense of others. But how about representing the true person that knows itself, that doesn't have to be told what right and wrong, that doesn't have disparaging differences of what group you belong to and to make you feel you need vital acceptance for your own movement every day until you're accepted by something you can't get out of bed because you have no worth, because the worth is in the toilet, because we were born because some asswipe ate an apple. And so out of that, I have to work from that. Perfect. That's right. Go ahead and have that truth. But I'm found different. And religion was a tool to get us to know ourselves. That's all. And once we go beyond that, well, who are we going to worship? Nobody. Why do we need to worship? Because we're less than. Because we're sinners. We're wrong. We're bad people. We're inherently born of original sin. Okay, great. Have that belief and live that life. You know why? Because you create your own reality with your experience and your relationship. I choose different. I'm not here to tell anyone who's right or wrong. How arrogant of that. I'm telling you, I showed a different way. We are enlightenment, and enlightenment is representation. Enlightenment's not preachers. It's not teachers and reachers. It's not these people that tell you this is the right way. We have just go to Barnes and Noble and go to self-help. And I'll show you how many people tell them this is the right way. Those things aren't invalid, but you got to look here. You got to find your truth, and you got to express that truth, and you got to go to the 1,000 belief systems that you coveted from your parents and society and schools and everything of your current generation, and you got to look at those truths and go, wait a minute, do I want to behave this way? You left the Catholic religion. You left Lutheran because it didn't sit with you, but you still have a truth in you, and that truth's the Bible, then be that. But God's sakes, don't tell anyone else they're wrong. Because then what are you going to do? I'll tell you what you're going to divide yourself from the collective. That's what you're going to do. You put yourself on a podium or a pedestal, then you become that idea in the idea of the countenance. If you have success, you're going to be looming over failure every day. If you have sorrow, then you're going to be hoping for success. Because you live in a world of polarity, but polarity is not the standard. Why do you think we fear so much? Because we think everything is bad until it shows up and we dissect it, grind it open, and say, okay, it's safe now. Anyone else really out there think that out of this, we're the only species? It's an awful waste of space, isn't it? Maybe that we are just in an idea of a bubble of a collective. And maybe we're earning our master's degree in ascension to actually incarnate into a physical being that doesn't know that they're part of the collective of all. Instead of the idea of a less than and earning my way back to heaven so I can live on streets paved with gold? What am I going to do with that? How much arrogance am I going to have as a big mansion? And I'm going to spend eternity walking around and I'm not going to evolve because I made it? I got one lifetime to make it? I'm out. But it's not wrong. Everyone is right. Every truth is true. Every religion is perfect to the eye of the beholder.
I have a question for you. I just have a question. I just have a question for you. Sorry. Who's making you wrong, or do you feel that somebody's making you wrong? In particularly you. Okay. I was just questioning. Okay. I was just asking because you keep bringing that up. I was just a question.
Well, I brought it up is because I want people to know.
I did because I asked questions and I'm curious, and I just showed up in the middle of all this. So.
Anyway, now that we have.
What, go? Go ahead.
I was just going to say let's give Natalie her opening statement, and then we can just basically open up the mic and we do a bit of back and forth. If
Yeah.
you're, or do you have
But
anything
to
else to say?
reiterate, Natalie, since she doesn't know anything about me, I'm reiterating that people are understanding that they're not wrong. Are you afraid? Is anyone afraid of going to work, afraid of getting fired, afraid if they're going to do something wrong, take a chance, do all the research before they step into the unknown? That's built in. I just want to let people know no one is ever wrong.
Got
I
it.
don't care if you're a rapist or Hitler or a saint. Everyone has experienced their eternal self. Everything else is division. Good,
Awesome.
Natalie?
Yes, thank you. I
Good.
appreciate it. Awesome. Okay.
Okay. We
I was
we
just
now
gonna-
have. We
it's
now, we
kind of
now
funny.
have.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry,
Sorry.
I'll go. We now have Natalie joining us. I interviewed Natalie, like I said, I think it was like November last year for Baramu. Natalie has a show on Podbean, Spirit and Brew. So we're delighted to have her tonight with us. And you can take over. You're better saying it than I am.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Sorry, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just curious. I just came in the middle of this. I apologize. And it's Spirit and Coffee. You can find me at spiritandcoffee.com. I call myself a spiritual alchemist. And thank you for all that, Roxanne, that you were saying, because I'm actually in a consciousness transformative studies program at JFKU. And I was actually in the middle of writing a paper kind of on similar things that you're talking about. You know, we talk about the duality and the unity. And I do I read a lot. I'm sure you do as well. And I'm reading right now, and you guys have probably heard of Ken Wilber's book, but Integral Psychology is a really good book that you can read if you're interested in kind of what you were talking about. I do see you have a spiral in the back of your head. So spiral dynamics is another really good thing that you guys can read about if you're interested in really educating yourself on what's happening. One thing that I was talking about is, quantum physics. We talk about science, and we talk about mysticism, and either one in each extreme can cause damage either way. And we can go into it's not right, wrong, good or bad. Absolutely believe in that conversation as well. But it does become really hard for people when they're experiencing these things. And I think that's what's I focus on, is like, how are people actually experiencing these things? If somebody were to murder my family, how would that impact my knowing, my feeling, my growth, my human development, and my expansion of consciousness, right? And so there are a couple of things I don't necessarily agree with in integral psychology. And as I get my PhD, I think that's part of what I'll focus on, is the language that allows us to express these things is really critical. The symbols that we use, really critical. They have meaning and they give context to the way that we see the world around us. And so these symbols sort of have an effect in how we see the world. And right now, I would say that science, and we know this, and I just wrote a quote, which is kind of funny in my paper. It's a quote that I have, and it says that, let's see if I could find it. Actually, I have my paper up right now because I was just writing, or I could just read what I wrote. I said, I would say that my inability to waver, because I was raised Catholic, led me to spiritual alchemy. So I call myself a spiritual alchemist. And I really follow natural processes, natural law to inform my understanding of the world. And I do think that we do make things up, but it's good for evolutionary expansion. And I kind of think that's what Roxanne was saying. It does help us for our expansion and our knowing of the world. It comes from that internal knowing, and for us to kind of find out who we are, and be able to do that. And so I say that if we looked at science, and if we looked at the way that science works, it leads to war, and we could put this in the context of the sacred feminine masculine, which is an easier way to dissect it. But when we think about the symbols that come with that patriarchy symbol, it leads to war. But when we think about the upward facing model and the femininity, it leads to chaos. So where's the balance? And for our own self, right? Because we know in Buddhism, the middle path is the way. And they say that for a reason. And anything outside that middle path is what we quote unquote called sin, which means we missed the mark. That's it, for our own internal happening. So absolutely agree with a lot of what Roxanne was saying. And there is a lot of historical trauma around what religious people have done. And we see it throughout history. And we see that they're, it's getting back to our lineage and understanding that beyond that, there was a way. And what was the way? And how did that way, and how did we get so far removed from that way? What was taken from us? What do we need to reintegrate to heal? And I think it's healing of consciousness, healing of ourselves, and understanding how to heal who we are internally. And science has shown that you can't outwit God. Okay, so maybe that God's triggering, but creator, whatever it is, right? This bigger thing, right? It could be fractal patterning or motifs, if you will. And how do we, you can't outdo it. When we start to look at the science, we know that nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. Again, Roxanne, you made that point. No one knows. No one knows at this point in science or in mysticism. And they're using mystic language to inform science at this point, because quantum theory tells us we don't know what the hell is going on. In my consciousness and transformative studies, and you can hear all of these scientists are freaking out. They split it, right? Church and science. And that split was to a detriment in humanity. So I would say, just for me, and I'll end it up if you guys have stuff to say, is that in order for us to heal in consciousness, I believe that part of that storyline, again, it's up to you. There's no right, wrong, good or bad, like Roxanne said, is to literally look at your own lineage, look at your own heritage. And that kind of helps to heal that historical trauma that a person or individual has gone through. And as they do that, they can start to reintegrate those parts of themselves that they feel are missing, because we only got part of the story, right? And unless you're doing your own research and understanding how this stuff works, really, honestly, there's a lot of pain and hurt in individuals because of what's happened. And we get to look at ourselves and say, how does that hurt us? How do I want to contribute, right? We obviously all want to contribute, or we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be on this podcast talking about it. We wouldn't have, Roxanne, who's very passionate. I can tell, very passionate about what you're doing. That's amazing. That's awesome. There's no right way and there's no one person. It's going to take a collective of individuals coming together to heal what was taken away. And we're all part of it. There's no escaping it. And there is no right or wrong or bad or good. And it's everybody's journey individually. I would say, though, that I believe it does lead to one place. I don't know if that's for sure. I can't say for sure. That's my own personal belief, that there's this one place that it all leads to. And so determinism and free will, which is kind of what Roxanne was speaking on too, some people don't believe in determinism, that there's a God that determines, and some people say fully free will. I say both, and I come from that belief system that there is a both and, that each individual has their own free expression, but it all leads to that determined one place, and how we get there is uniquely ours. So that's kind of how I believe, but it's not right, wrong, good or bad. It doesn't mean it's right. It's just my way, right? And so thank you for letting me be on here and give my 2 cents. I was just writing this paper as I was like, oh, I forgot this was on. So thank you for letting. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I?
Yeah, on you go, Solid.
No, I have a question for both Roxanne and Natalie, because I like the fact that you say who's right and wrong. That that makes a lot of sense to me. And also in terms of historical trauma. And and I'm kind of alluding to a conversation that Ba and I had. When you look at, to me, who's right and wrong, someone can ask a question and you can answer it. But if you don't answer it to that person's, to their satisfaction, they can perceive that you're wrong. But if you have reasons for doing things, who are you to say that someone's right or someone's wrong? And when you guys both said that, it was like, that's what I was trying to say. It's like, I have my reasons for doing things. You have your reasons for doing things. I have my way of thinking this way. You have your way of thinking that way. Just because I don't answer something to someone's satisfaction, does that make me wrong?
Of course not.
So do you guys to Roxanne and Natalie on that question. Do you guys believe in a divine truth? And that means not just in the relation to religion and where we came from.
Natalie, you
I'm
want to go
talking
with
about
that?
every single conversation that we have where there's evidence and factual, that, like a question like, where did this come from? Do you believe there is a divine truth? There's a truth answer, but people can play with it and have their own take. Do you believe in that, or do you think that? Well,
Hang on.
Okay.
Yeah, you've asked the question. You don't need any more help. It was a good
Yeah.
question.
So I could give you a little bit of insight as I don't know if it's a belief. I can give you, I don't know that there's a divine truth. Nobody could never, how could we come to know that there's a divine truth, right? If we're in a 3-dimensional time space, that's what I call this space. We're in a 3-dimensional time space experiencing something. I can say this though, science, and I could tell you what science is saying. Cosmology, right? If you go into cosmology right now and quantum physics from the scientific lens, when we go all the way back, right? If you're taking the theory of the Big Bang, basically, we're saying that we don't know that there was this great void, out of nothing came something, quarks, all this kind of stuff. And so what they're trying to do now is they've done this, and it's crazy because I'm a spiritual alchemist, so I look at symbology. They're using the Ouroboros, and I don't even know if I'm saying that correct, as a way to depict all sizes and all levels of consciousness, which to me, I'm kind of not very happy about it, the way that they're utilizing it. And this is why I want to get my PhD and kind of say, I think we're just putting ourselves as central to everything. I think there's a problem with that specifically. But when they do it, they say we're at the center of all possible sizes and all possible matter, and that we are at the center of complex consciousness on that scale. And so what does that mean? Does that mean that, consciousness, complex consciousness can exist in other beings? And I think Roxanne alluded to this as well. What about when we talk about Arcturians, or when we're talking about maybe other civilizations or other alien beings? How do we know how big they are? How do we? So I think it's very egocentric to say, oh, we're the central of all things. I think it's incorrect and to say that specifically. But they will say, how do we bridge the gap between the two? And if we're looking at complex matter, and so what they're doing is bringing in quantum physics, right? Well, quantum physics tried to say that we knew everything. Science tried to say we knew everything. And if you understand a little bit about quantum physics, you know that you don't know. You don't know, and they don't know. And the physicists will tell you they don't know. So anybody who's trying to tell you that they know is they're not telling you the truth. I think Roxanne said this also. They don't know. Nobody knows right now. And that's why it's critical, because what I see is that our civilization is going back to the active imagination or the collective imagination, and we're reinventing ourselves. And what's going to arise from that is a new paradigms coming up, which are integral theory is one, and living systems, which I think is closer to spiritual alchemy than any other kind of system that we could talk about, because, it follows natural law, natural systems, where natural systems, again, Roxanne talked about, it doesn't matter who's right, wrong, good or bad. Shit's going to happen. And we know that. And I think there's some really good quotes that Jesus Christ, I always come back to Jesus Christ because there were good quotes that were utilized, is forgive them for they know not what they do. And what I think that really just alludes to from my perspective is that people are going to be people. This 3-dimensional time space is not going to change. We keep repeating the same patterns over and over and over again. But we have these pockets of understanding where we can start to expand our consciousness and transcend those old narratives. So what I'm saying in whole is we need a new narrative. Nobody knows what that narrative is, and we're all seeking to understand what that new narrative is. And, Roxanne, you're doing your work in trying to communicate it from your perspective. I'm doing my work from my perspective. Bahram, also you. What is your name? Sorry, Solid. I just see Solid. Lisa, you're doing it from your perspective, but we can see now that we're coming together, what will arise from that is not the absolute truth, but it's going to be a new narrative for us to live through, a new paradigm. Yeah. And you can say an ascension, if you will. Yeah, absolutely. So Roxanne, I don't know if you want to say something. Go ahead.
That was wonderful. Okay. In the world that I work in the Seth material Seth is a being that was channeled by Jane Roberts. There's 7 books from the 60s, and they're still top seller books today. Abraham Hicks, which is channeled by Esther Hicks. Law of Attraction, huge thing. She's been doing this since the 80s. Jay-Z Knight channeled Ramtha. Ramtha School of Enlightenment was on the Merv Griffin show. The idea is to get specific with you, Ba, is all truths are true. There's no not true, because every single universe. Imagine me as this. If I'm looking into my bubble of reality, and my bubble is right here, France is in my memory. My parents are in my memory. Where I used to words, my memory. If I want to bring those up into myself, if I want to experience my trauma, I experience it now. That's my truth. Everyone is their own truth. You can never be wrong. You can be wrong to the standards of humanity. You can be wrong to the scriptures of what is solid in fact, which we all know has changed because we don't drill heads anymore to let out the demons. Hey! We did that to 1920. Their last known lobotomy was 1986. We're an evolving species, guys. So there's nothing that we're going to desperately search for as the constant, because the only constant is change. We're evolutionary. So all truths are true. That's what we are. Can you imagine if there was someone in charge? Let's think about it. Come on now. Someone's in charge of creation. I forgot. Someone gave me this so I can draw on it. So let's just take for 1 second. Let's put someone as the standard. Let's call him God. So if God's then the standard, and we're all down in this bubble of business, and we're all going through our little selves, what happens when we run out of room? When we can't go beyond the conditioning? Because this one's in charge. God didn't create himself out of ego. We created ego. Humans created the division. I'm right, you're wrong. That's part of the experience. God created himself. God's all alone and goes, okay, I'd like to see something from a different point of view. So God creates Lisa. So Lisa goes, wow, look at me. Hi, look at me. And God's looking at God, but God sees God from a different point of view. Same God, but its own truth. And then Natalie, and then Bob, and Roxanne, and then every single singularity and all of creation continues itself. Well, how do we create all that space? Well, we don't have space as a standard. We create space because we're thought. We're light. That's all we are. We can't go beyond the idea. We incarnate. We create physical. We slow matter down, light down to create matter. So we have an experience of a light show called a holodeck. So those ideas about someone up here in charge. Well, let me ask you this, rhetorically. Doesn't this explain everything then? It explains everything, that no one's in charge. That creation is literally unconditional. That explains every reason everything is happening, because everyone is expressing their own truth. No one is wrong. Everyone is right to themselves. But there isn't a standard. But we desperately need, I wanted to be right. You know why? Because I was taught I was wrong. I was taught I was less than. I was taught I did it wrong over and over and over again. People in my age, I'm 55 years old, know exactly what it was like to grow up in the age. Nowadays, we've done enough evolutionary work where we actually care about our children and their opinion matters. Instead of children should be seen and not heard. Remember that?
Yeah, I do see that. I do see that too. And I think paving the way for, I'm a little bit younger than you, but not much. But still, I think in times that came before us, it was really, really kind of hard. One of my mentors, she's like, I love her, the tarot reader. She's like 7. I swear I'm going to be this lady when I get older. She has all white hair. She has all her tarot decks. And, I love her so much. But she was living in a time where it was totally unacceptable, completely unacceptable. We were living in, mechanistic worldview.
Exactly.
And it wasn't okay. And now things are shifting, the paradigm's shifting, and people that weren't ready for it are now freaking out about it. But we do have these, they call them, star children, all this. It's just that these kids are coming in with this new understanding and ready to receive the information that our ancestors were fighting so hard to keep alive.
But hang on. But
Yeah, go ahead.
make sure you understand. Every generation has that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every hippie
Yes.
that stowed the chance.
Yes.
Everyone was a star child or
Yes.
whatever. No one
Absolutely.
is special.
Yeah, exactly.
Every
Yeah.
single singularity has the creator inside of them.
Right. Correct. You're absolutely correct. And I think that, yes, you're absolutely correct. And I'm saying that you guys paved the way for the next generation to receive the information you were giving. And so now the next generation, as we continue to evolve, yes, then the next generation will receive our message. Yes. 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 Yes.
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Yes.
When we have the comments pop up, I just want to see if somebody wants to take this. And I do believe, Roxanne, this was for you.
Which one?
We were talking about the division of religion. So do you want to answer this?
I'm not saying the division of religion is standard. Of course, you can have a friend as a Muslim and stuff like that. What I'm saying is that Muslim says we're right and these religions are not. They can accept them, but this is the way. That's not the. I see division in religion. My single world. Look, let me give you an idea of subjective and objective. Objective is viewed as something outside, right? Subjective is my truth. Well, I only have that truth. So if I see an animal slaughtered, is that painful? Well, only if I perceive it that way, because I don't know what the animal's going through. So my experience with religion is the idea it's dividing. It's this and not that. Hinduism, paganism, right here, right? A pagan. He thought it was Bob, when he first saw it, thought it was a pentagram. It's not a pentagram. It's a pagan. It's the idea of the umbrella, but it doesn't divide because it doesn't worship. It doesn't have a gods outside of itself. That's not right or wrong. That's this truth. But the idea of the religion dividing was my experience, just like I've seen that divide. I've seen Christians kill Native Americans. I've seen Christians kill gay people because God hates faggots. That's what it said. That's the era I grew up in.
Sure.
That was a reality. It's not in the history books. We took the entire idea of the Jewish nation and Hitler slaughtered them. Slaughtered them because it was a division of religion. That's my experience. But I'm saying a follower of Jesus Christ, I'm not saying that's the standard. That's not the standard at all. You create your reality and you're doing that. But the experience of those divisional pockets, just like if I was white and you're black, does my whitehood make me different? Only if I say it does. If you accept me as a difference of that, or my transgender fits in. I'm great when a white person, but if I'm a transgender, then I'm all of a sudden an ostracized. Try to go into a woman's bathroom in a public place like this. It's not an easy thing. But what am I going to do? Divide myself or be myself? So those divisions are perceived. So I can't fix the outside. I have to change the inside. This creates my reality. My relationship to reality is my experience. And every relationship I see is my truth. If that truth is transcendable, then I need to go to work on me. That's my division. I create my reality. My pain is mine. I've never been suffered by another. I interpreted the suffer by another. I assigned it objectively through the subjective self. I was separated and I didn't know. So the hate I grew for the religions and the parents and all this that made me so mad that you're hurting people. Stop it. Stop dividing. Feed. We have more food and more space. Do you know in the state of Texas where I live, I can fit France and Germany in here? And that's living so much room for everyone to live. But we won't do that because we're still divided. We're still economically divided. We're still class-driven. That's not wrong. We're an evolutionist. This is a time of awakening. The awakenings didn't start. The awakening's been happening for years, millenniums. We're all getting better at ourselves. But do we have enough humility and surrender to see ourselves and to change that truth and represent that enlightenment in a way that others can see the beauty within themselves, not through the idealism of external acceptance? So you can have a religion friend of a Muslim, of course, that's awesome. So be that. But don't look at me as a counterance, because I'm not a counterance.
And to be fair, I will say this really quickly on that note, is that when we start to really look at all religions, we are the ones who are creating the divide. Because if you really look at what they're saying the answer is within. I mean, you can just see it in every single, always. And I think we miss that point. And so when we start putting religion on it, people start to say, well, this, but if you go back to the original teachings, they're always saying, you have the answers. The truth is within. And we forget this, somehow we forget this.
We didn't know.
And exactly. And so we look for the answers outside of ourselves and we follow their process thinking that's the only way. And that's not necessarily true. Your way is the way. Okay, go ahead. I know you want to say something.
Okay, no, I wanted someone to answer this follow-up to a follower of Jesus Christ. You said all religions are true, so why do you care what the Bible or
I don't care.
Says? Wait, hold on. And I also want someone, I want to include this other comment in where me, myself, and INTP says the Bible is an ancient form of mind control. So can you all address both?
I can.
Yeah, let's have.
I can address the
okay.
The second one. I believe that's Sava asking about, saying about the Bible being mind control. I'll tell you guys my views on religion, and Roxanne and the stuff that you guys can speak about is way up here with me. Like, I'm in reality and I'm miles away from where you guys are, but I'm listening to it, and I really genuinely do. And it's, to me, I'm living what you guys are not, and it's a flaw. I know that I need to, get into that side of it for me, but it's very early for me. This is a 3-year journey for me. I don't know how long you guys have been at it for, but when I first got into philosophy,
real quick,
yeah, on you go.
Don't put yourself less than. We might be above you, but you vibrated into opportunity. And don't think of yourself as lifetimes. Think of yourself as eternal. Just because you go through 50 human bodies or a couple other different incarnations doesn't mean you got this one wrong. This is part of your story, just a new chapter, kid.
Right. And another thing I want to say, I have to interject. I'm sorry, but I know you wanted to say something. But another thing, and it's true, I want to just mirror what Roxanne was saying, is that this is why we need a new language, because this is where integral psychology, I have an issue with it, because it talks about levels of consciousness. And I feel we need to get out of that mindset. I don't believe we have levels of consciousness. I think we have convergence and emergence. And I think that there's contraction and expansion. And I think consciousness, we start with a contracted consciousness that expands outward. I don't think we have levels of consciousness, and that puts people in the mindset that they're not, exactly. I'm beneath you. I'm not over you. And I think Roxanne's trying to say that. But the reason why we have these conversations is because we don't have the right symbols right now, the right language. And I think we're starting to figure out what is the language that lets us understand how things are going. So right now, I would say your consciousness is expanding, and you're learning, you're wanting to expand the consciousness within you, which gives it a whole other feel, right? Instead of saying I'm below you. No, you're not. You're trying to expand your consciousness. You're trying to understand how you fit into this equation, this story, this narrative. Anyway, I'll let you talk now. Sorry, I just had to go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's a good way of putting it. Sometimes I just let my mouth spew, and whatever comes out comes out. But for me, I've battled, and I think for the listeners, I know, and definitely for myself, what I meant is we could maybe focus more on the kind of creationists, what we believe creationists. Do you believe in creationists, or are you an atheist? Not, and this is where all throughout my life, I loved religious education in school. Most kids chose that class to mess around in. I love to hear about Noah and the Ark and all that kind of fun stuff. And I believed in Jesus and God. And then I got into philosophy. I listened to a philosopher for about 2 years. He was an atheist. And I thought religion sounds kind of no, what's the word? Contradicts itself, like an all being, all knowing, all loving God, but yet if you sin, you go to hell. It's like, when you come at it from a philosophy type of thing, it destroys it. So I left it for a while, and then I got into conspiracy theories, as everyone knows, and looking into things like flat Earth and all the other things. For me, I'm back on track. I 100% believe there is a God. What that God looks like or is, or I do not know. But what I've realized is, or this is where I come from, and it's where I differ from most. I this is probably a bad way as well, but there's levels of conspiracy theorist or truth or whatever you like to be called. And there's a few people, and there is a group on Telegram that I would consider these guys are like at the top of the game. They've done it for decades. They know their shit. And these guys all have a few things in common. And one of them is that they all believe in the Bible and they all believe in Jesus Christ and God. Whereas I don't. I believe in a God, whatever that may be, but I do not believe in religion. I believe the Bible, the Quran, the Talmud, the Torah, all these books are written by man and they're corrupted, and there's a lot of symbolism and occult numbers and doctrine in these books that I do believe that they are the books of slavery. They are do not do this, do not do this, behave, and we can enslave human beings to behave well. Because if you're I always say this, and I know there could be pushback here, but if you're a good Christian, you're a good human being. I believe, and I don't know, because I've never looked into Islam or anything like that, but you're not committing adultery, you're not murdering, you're not stealing because you're told. So if you're following the Bible to a T, you're probably a good human being. And I think that's what the Bible has been set out to do. But again, I do believe we are created. So that's where, again, it's all, in a year's time, I could be saying, no, that's completely wrong. And listening to you both, it is really interesting, but it's well above my head just now. And I don't mean that, it's the wrong thing where I'm saying that you guys are up here. I just mean the knowledge that I'm on I've probably only, like I say, 3 years of listening to these voices and people, and I'm gathering my own thoughts, and I've never really studied one single thing like you guys have. And that's, where I let myself down. But the question I was going to leave you guys with was, do you guys believe in UPB? That's one thing that I've kind of stuck with from my philosophy a couple of years, is UPB, universal preferable behavior. So the example that sticks in my mind is stealing is not universally preferable behavior, because you're doing something against someone, they don't want it, so it's not universally preferable. If it was, it wouldn't be stealing. If you're taking something from someone and they're letting you, then it's not stealing, but you're taking it against their will, so it's universally preferable. So
okay,
let
me tell you a couple. Can I? Oh, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Are you done?
Well, it was just to kind of, because there's things that you guys are saying. Again, I love it and all that, but I'm trying to get to maybe some things that we could kind of combat on each other. Not that I would. I probably agree with everything you say. I don't know, but there are things that maybe you guys are saying that the listeners or myself might be like, well, see, if you guys are saying that there's no wrong, there's always right. And like, I think Roxanne kind of mentioned like Hitler and like some of these evil people in the world. It's not, I don't want to paraphrase you or use, but you said something along the lines of that's their truth and all that. But, a lot of people will be sitting saying that's wrong. Like, and we can all see that. And
so social norms arise from the collective consciousness. Collectively, we determine what's right, wrong, good, or bad. And I can say that from the beginning of time, if we looked at let's just look at animals, for instance, they kill, some animals will eat their babies if they're this or that. And we don't sit there and say they're right, wrong, or neither do they say they're right, wrong, good, or bad. But humans, if we talked about expansion of consciousness, we've come up with what's right, wrong, good, or bad, and specifically for the survival of the species, right? Because if we were all killing each other and murdering each other and we got to war, we're going to die. So there is a good reason to have right and wrong universally, right? It's because we don't want the child walking off the edge of the pool, falling in and drowning. We want it to survive. And it's really survival instinct. So we can even equate that to maybe the chakra system, where we say, oh, our first instinct is to survive. We want to survive as a species. At the end of the day, does it matter? It matters to us because we're experiencing and we want to evolve in consciousness. That's what I believe. And here's what happens if we don't survive. Then what? If all of humans disappeared from the planet, which I hate to say right now, we're not doing a very good job as a human species with the planet. And so if we were to disappear, what would happen? Well, the planet might heal itself. And we're just adding more on top of it, right? So is there a right, wrong, good, or bad? I don't know. The planet's going to be the planet. It's going to be here whether we're here or not. And I think that we can have that conversation. I think we come from an egocentric point of view of survival. And that's just a natural thing. We want to survive. We want to live. We want to procreate. We want to have children. We want to see that we're a species that survives. But you know what? There's been many species that have gone extinct. And to get to that level of understanding, because we have this primal fear of death, right? And I think Roxanne said it, we're forever. That fear of death is what we're talking about. We're not talking about anything else. People are afraid to die and they don't know what's going to happen. And that's the question. Is there an afterlife? Is there a God? And then they do all of these studies on people who've had near-death experiences. And we start to see, oh, well, yeah, they had some experience of after death and what happens after. We have people who use psychedelics, people who have done drumming ceremonies and reached these higher states of consciousness, right? And so those people have an experience. Is it real? Can we say it's real? Roxanne said it before. You don't know, because it's the individual experiencing. It's a subjective thing that's happening within the individual. But our instinctual wanting to survive, absolutely. And another thing, because you talked about the Christ I Know Bible came up and all that stuff. And I want to say that for me, what I believe, I still follow a lot of religious beliefs. I'm a spiritual alchemist, and there's truth in each one of them. And what I mean by truth is that each one of them has given us the same formula. And I just want to make that my go away. The answer's within. And that's what Roxanne and I are talking about, I believe. If we took away anything from this, it's exactly what Buddha said. It's exactly what even Gandhi, even probably Mother Teresa, Jesus Christ. You can say, I don't know, we can go on and on and on and on. Muhammad, all of these great people, you know what they said? The answer's within. You hold the answer. You hold the key. That doesn't mean, and here's the deal, if you do and you start listening to yourself, you're not going to go killing things. In fact, the more that you expand your consciousness, the more that you're in harmony with nature. And I would say that that's what needs to happen. We have to start looking at ourselves. We need to stop looking at the religion, look within. That's the answer. Your answer is within. I don't know how many more times we have amnesia. I swear we can probably talk maybe 5 more hours on this point. We're not going to do that. But if we talked 5 more hours and everybody'd have these questions, I remind you, the answer's within. The answer's within. You have the answers. You've got to trust yourself. Learn to love yourself, right? Look at the identity thing, right? We're talking about identity right now. That is a really hard thing to go through. You talked about the identity of being a person that goes in to a restroom, right? And you feel you're a woman and people just feel uncomfortable. What about that? You have to learn to love yourself, right? You have to say, this is who I am. I love me. I love all of me. And if you can love yourself so much, you're not going to harm anything else. You're not going to want to. But I'll tell you one more thing and then I'll shut up. So in my class, one of my professors who specifically works in consciousness and paradigms said that a professor went into a bunch of capitalists and they hired him specifically to say, when the big thing happens, right? When this big thing goes down, like in Rome, when it expires, what should we do? They thought that he would have the answer for them. And you know what he told them? Be kind, love your people, learn to be generous. He told them that's the answer. And they didn't like his answer. They didn't like his answer at all. So here's the takeaway. Be kind, be generous, be compassionate, not just to people, to yourself. Learn to be kind, compassionate, and generous to yourself. Learn to love yourself, nurture yourself. And then you're going to nurture the world around you. And that's what I have to say. Roxanne, go ahead.
Well, I wanted Lisa to talk.
Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
I'm keeping up with these comments. You
Okay.
know, again, I believe in the Bible. Like I said, I believe Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Who God is to me has changed over the years. I am a child of the 70s. Okay. And I'm dating myself. But I believe that there is a right and wrong. I do believe that if you kill someone, that's wrong. If you murder someone, that is wrong. But I do strongly believe that you cannot tell someone what their truth should be. I do believe that, that, and I'm pretty sure we've all done it at some point. Um, no one's perfect. Um, we all have flaws. Um, but you cannot tell someone what someone should think. And if you're at an impasse, you just let it go, because everyone is not going to believe what everyone else believes. Now, when it comes to God, again, maybe just because, I grew up in the church, but I do believe that, and I think I don't forget who said how many times the Bible has been rewritten. I believe the Bible was written by man. And there are different versions, whatever. But when people believe in the Bible, I think they choose the 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 the, the version that's best for them. Um, I use the Bible as a guide. I don't take it in the literal sense, because you can't. I do believe that you have the New Testament, the Old Testament, and the New. And the Old is where people were living, where God said, you better not do this, and God said, you better not do this. Then the New Testament came along, and if you believe that Jesus came to, save us from our sins, whatever, that, okay, I know you sin, and it's okay. So the New Testament kind of gave everyone a pass to sin. And I know I'm probably not making any sense, but I know what I'm trying to say. What you and Roxanne have said has made me rethink certain things, made me rethink a lot of things. And I am going to go back this evening when I'm walking my dog and I'm just in my own thoughts. And a lot of things that you all say, a light bulb is going to go off in my head, because it already has. But I can honestly say, I know it's not going to take me too far away from my faith. But for everything else, when you said, who's right and who's wrong, a lot of times people say, your opinions versus facts. Things have to be rooted in facts. But what are facts? People send me things from the internet, and I get things from everyone. I had someone a couple of years ago who would literally give me these articles, and I would read them. I'm not going to tell you what the articles were about, but they were insulting. And I'm like, you're seriously giving me these to read? But then when I turned around and started purposely sending this person things to read and whatever, they didn't want to read it. And I have had people who have told me, when I have said, do you want to read this? They're like, no, I don't want to read it, but you're giving me all of this stuff to read. So it's like, so this whole conversation that we've been having, the word hypocrite comes to mind. Are we all hypocrites? on some level. You know, are we all, you know, do we all say one thing and mean something else, or do as I say, not as I do? So I make a comment that's rubs some people the wrong way, more than one person, that there's assholes on both sides.
But
And
let me
I,
just let me just say one thing.
Mhm.
What you're saying is an objective idea that is still subjective. Go back to what Natalie said. The truth is only yours, and how you interpret your reality is your experience.
So there's no right, so everyone has their own right and wrong.
Well, okay.
They don't even need to have a wrong. Everyone has their own truth. All you're doing is interpreting your world. We're offering this vibration. So if you take away the pictures, take away the bodies, take away the internet, take away the division, let's look at vibration. You're interpreting a frequency of light and experiencing that, but the feeling is what's coming through. That's the authenticity. You're taking that authentic idea, which is every now, whether you're shopping online or shopping in a store or giving someone, you're getting feedback. That feedback is for you to know yourself and to choose your truth. My greatest dream for all humanity is stop believing and start knowing. Because when you know, you're unwavering, unnegotiable, and undebatable. You become yourself. I was chock full of beliefs. If I'm a hypocrite, that's part of my evolution. If someone views me as a hypocrite, that's their truth. Where's the commandment that says I have to accept another's truth when truth lies in the eye of the beholder?
So
I am my own kingdom. I am finding my way home. And I can't use the standards of humanity through the idea of emotional context of morality to guide me. I have to discover I am my own kingdom and I am eternal, and my guide is my truth. Even if I start way the hell out here in shitville compared to what human sees me at, but if I am diligent and I am worthy of my own discovery, then I will find myself not to the idea of the defined perfect, to realize the perfection lies in the moment of my own evolution. And it's only time and memory that allows me to accuse myself of wrong. And that is a standard that I must have coveted from the human belief system, because polarity lies within the human idea, back to Natalie's duality. So I can have the experience of finding myself and others in fault because I am the mastery of my own ascension. And I can accept those things or I can deny those things. I can do whatever the hell I want because no one's in charge of me or anyone else. Because everything is I am.
Yeah. And I want to say just one thing to that also. And thanks, Roxanne, is and to maybe help give you some kind of context to it. I call it walking integrity. So I do have a course online that's called Setting Goals and Achieving Them. We can assess where we are within our own mirror image, right? I think that I can't remember the guy, but he talks about the 3 mirrors. Here's the deal. What is reflected back to you, I'll take it a step further, is what's reflected back to you is feedback. If you're not living in a life of integrity and doing your word, right, is everything. So if you're practicing your word and you're following your word, you're going to live in integrity. You're going to feel the integrity. When that goes off of alignment and we start to get this feedback that feels really uncomfortable to us, that could be the mirror giving us feedback that we're probably not on the right journey, right? And we kind of know this. We kind of feel it, right? And that determines what might be true for us or right or wrong for us. So for instance, if somebody is giving you these articles and you're feeling uncomfortable, I would ask the question of, why did they make you feel uncomfortable? What internally about it did they?
No, it didn't make me feel uncomfortable.
Oh, it didn't make you uncomfortable. Sorry.
It was just insulting.
Insulting. Okay, so you felt insulted. Sorry for misspeaking. But you would say, why do I feel insulted by this? What needs to happen within me so that I can expand my consciousness and my truth? Because whatever that insult feels like is an experience, and that's what Roxanne was saying. You're experiencing something internally from that, whatever's happening outside of you, and then you can only control what's happening inside of you. And whatever that insult is. Now, you can say a couple of things. Guess what? I don't like the reflection that I'm seeing back at me, which is this individual. I'm going to set a boundary and I'm not going to talk to them anymore. And there you go. You cut it off. Or
I'll close
you
the
can,
door.
or close the door. Or you can say, hey, you know what? I want to understand what this means for me. Why am I feeling like this? And how come? What is it triggering something inside of me? Is it an opportunity to learn something and expand myself even more? Right? Because those uncomfortable experiences, we want to get away from them, but they're the best opportunities for growth is when we're most uncomfortable. So it's asking, and the hypocrite part, as someone said, hypocrites, of course we're hypocrites, but here's the deal, at least me, I'll be like, oh, I'm a hypocrite. But you know what? If someone tells me that, I look at myself and I say, how was I a hypocrite? I was a hypocrite. Okay, now let me kind of readjust myself and align myself. And I'm just molding myself like this. Back to my authentic truth. I can never be the image that I want to be of myself, but I can definitely try my hardest to get there. Find that middle path, which Buddhism gives us, the middle path, the middle way. It's really just not wavering from one extreme to the next, but it's finding that middle path that guides us. So the reflection in the mirror is important, and that feedback's important for integrity. What I call integrity. Yeah.
The one thing about an image, I get that, but I won't put an image because an image only comes from the perfection of my mind that's current. If I'm the constant change moving into the unknown, I'm going to create the image, not discover what I think it's going to be down the road based off of a memory, because then I'm working in time.
Absolutely.
Anyways,
that's like a big, and that's a big.
Yeah, that's a big, I know. Yes, but Lisa, look at that. It says right here, Roxanne, why are you so hostile?
Yeah.
See, that's beautiful. I'm not hostile. To me, people view me as hostile. Go watch my YouTube channel and I'm yelling and screaming. But people say, why are you yelling and screaming? And other people say, my God, you're so passionate. That's the subjective view. I'm not hostile. This is who I am. I can't be any other way, because if I'm being any other way, then I'm unworthy to myself. And I'm fitting the idea of the box to please another because they said I'm a particular way. And if I keep adjusting myself for the outside, I am going to really, really be a miserable person. Go ahead, Bob.
Can I see the stuff that you both, well, more so Roxanne there, the stuff about your truth and all that. How far do you take that in life into reality as well? Because I'm trying to think of an example here. The last 5 minutes, I'm trying to think of an example. And let's just say
of where it goes out of bounds?
Yeah, no, but like, let's say someone in my life, in my immediate life, decides that 2 + 2 = 5. And that's their truth. But what if that 2 + 2 = 5 affects my life? And I'm talking like, this is why I can't think of a good example. The government then start implementing laws that affect my life on 2 + 2 = 5.
Have they?
No, well, in my opinion,
but see, that's the point. You're always taking the memory of the possibilities of what might happen in duality, and you're trying to fixate on how to adjust yourself in the now. How about this? Forget about the future, forget about the past, live now. Use the memory as a complementary idea to know yourself. So when you see that person that says you're a hypocrite and you look at that mirror and you're like, no, that was my truth because it feels nature. But if I am resistant towards that and I have an emotional reaction, then maybe I can look at myself. But if I'm trying to see how far it can go and what's going to be the idea of the government or someone coming in and changing me and making me into something, then I'm just taking what? I'm taking my fear and I'm putting it on the future and I'm trying to fix it now. I think we've been doing that long enough. Live in the now, be now. Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Great book. But just live now. You know how hard it is to live now? I've been working on it for 9 years and I'm good at it, but I'm not done working on it because I still have the idea of money in the future, rent in the future, possibilities of the future. Those are resounding vibrational potentials for me. Creation doesn't hold back the creator. It is always a constant attraction of thought. And then you're getting all these things. And which one's important is the value of your own truth. There's where you look. So when you see the idea of, okay, how far does it go? If this guy equals 2 + 2 = 5, let him. It's not affecting you until it affects you. If the government comes in and says it's 5, then say, okay, it's 5. But why do you have to fight that truth? It's not affecting you in the idea of the birthing truth. Look, you don't trust vibration yet. You don't know what law of attraction is. What you put out is what you get back. Not evil and good, not good and not bad, karma, all that stuff, that's human story. Throw it out the window just for a minute. Be your truth, your honest truth, and you'll find every ounce of coveted truth inside of you. And then when you choose the truth of you, you'll feel a way you haven't feel. You'll feel a way that's not supported by emotion, that's not supported by imagery, that's validated by comfort in numbers, nor the standards of your own memory or history. You'll feel an isness that's undeniable and unwavering and unnegotiable. You'll be I am, even if it's this much. It's enough for you to move into the next truth and the next truth and the next truth. And you'll find a truth that's no longer truth, and you have to have the humility to let go of that so you can climb the rung of the ladder of ascension, your own evolution. And when you go to the new self, then you're going to all of a sudden, you're not going to be all wound up about what's not and what could be and what this and what that, and what about this, and all the time. All that is an experience of the now. That's all it is. You're just journeying in the now. Does it mean anything to anyone else? Does this conversation mean anything to anyone in the Aztec, in the Andes Mountains right now? Any of the tribes over in Cameroon? Do they care about this? No, they're in their own bubbles, living their own truth, being their own self. We're not heroes or specialists. We're experiencers of our own creative bubble. And we've drawn each other in to evolve ourselves. So take what you will out of it and do your best. But the best to you. And don't worry about failing. You can't get it wrong if you're forever.
Yeah. And okay, so I want to just make a
can I interrupt one moment? We are at the 15 minute mark before the half hour. And INTP wants to join because we always have one person who's in the chat join. So I can send that to you, but I can't text it. I could if you had an iPhone, it'd be a lot easier. Well, and Roxanne, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I do.
Yes. So if you had an iPhone, it would be a lot easier. So I can send you the link. Do you want me to send it to your email? Or I can put it in the link here and you can just click on it. So Saba, can I do it like that? Can I just send it and you just click on the link and then you'll be beyond? So let's try it this way and sending link to you now.
While you're doing that, can I ask Roxanne and Natalie, how do you believe we got here?
We incarnated. We've always been creators, and we just focus our energy through our will to create this experience.
I have an origin story. I actually never have incarnated here in my origin story. But I think I came from something totally different, which I know. Then we get into this stuff where people go, but here's the deal. People can tap into this if they actually start to know themselves, and they'll have their own experience of how they came to be. From a scientific perspective, they say we came from quarks and the evolution of the Big Bang, whatever you want to call it. And if you look at that and people need a scientific understanding, I highly recommend just go watch it. It's pretty cool. Cosmology is kind of cool when you think about it from the scientific perspective, and how we're actually stardust for real. It shows you that we're stardust, right? In the evolution of that as well. But my spirit, my soul, came from something called chimera, which people would probably never have heard of, and would say that it is completely demolished. I don't tell many people about this, so I guess I'm coming publicly saying it, where I have went through different stellar evolutions. Part of this is a bigger, I think Roxanne was talking about earlier, the context, which is bigger. It's a conversation. We're basic level. We have to come maybe even more basic with these conversations so that people can understand. But when you get to this place, it's the context, right? We become the context, meaning things evolve around us naturally. What's the law of attraction would be like, hey, pen, and a pen would just fall out of nowhere because we become the context for that to happen. So, but yes, I am from Chimera. There you go. First time being on this planet, and I know it's going to be the last. and definitely here to keep, drop some wisdom. Hopefully people will, hopefully I can contribute to the narrative in some way that's meaningful for people. That's what I'm here to do.
And in that perfect moment, Ba, you search it out yourself.
Yes.
Because
Amen.
once you're interested in something, you will be surprised on how much law of attraction will bring that material to you through unknown sources. It's like when you see a car, you're like, I really want that car. And then all of a sudden, wherever you go, you see that car now. It's because now you can see that car. You're going to attract these things. We're not going to tell you this is the way. We're not going to tell you anything. We're only creating a moment of our eternal evolution. Grab what you will, take it up as you do. That's the best that you are. And that's not bad. That's the now I am. And now I am. And now I am. And you keep evolving. Stop looking to win the gold star at the end of the race. This isn't a contest and there's no failure because there's no judges except the one that you put in your head because you were born separated in a judging world. So you look at those things in here. This creates the outside. Make sense? So find out for yourself.
Okay, Sava is here. She has chosen not to be on video, but Sava, you have the mic. You there?
I think you're on mute, maybe.
You have to unmute yourself.
It says I'm muted.
Okay, now,
now it's muted now.
Okay, now go back and hit it one more time. There. We don't hear you.
Oh,
maybe you have to choose a microphone. Microphone's not working.
Oh, that's right. You do have to choose a microphone.
Okay. Go to where you see the mic and click that little arrow. And you should be able to choose the microphone that you want to use. Mm-hmm. Okay, not sure what's going on. It's real simple. You should just be able to click that and you should be on.
We'll just carry on. Sava, if you get your mic, just interrupt us and we'll know that you're there. We'll just carry on.
How much time do we have on this now?
We try and keep the shows below 1 hour 45 because I think over that you're kind of struggling to upload these files to certain websites. So
yeah, I know someone else who kind of wants to come on, but he doesn't know if he's able to keep up with Roxanne and Natalie. So Michael, if you want to join, the link is there. So
and you guys can go to my podcast, spiritandcoffee.com. Spirit and Coffee is like, it's all about spiritual alchemy. And so the wisdom, esoteric wisdom. So you guys are welcome to just go on there. And I'm always open for people to reach out to me. I think that my friend told me, just dumb it down. And someone said, don't dumb it down. And so I'm like,
don't dumb it down.
I know that's exactly. So thanks, Roxanne, for that, because it's kind of hard because, I do want individuals to start to know themselves. And I do have setting goals and achieving them. I talk about time currency. I talk about managing overwhelm. I talk about setting goals and achieving them. What does that look like? And you can find my course on my website as well. But the reality is that we are here together as a community of people and individuals. And I'm coming from a space of love and kindness and compassion. And I think, oh, no, I don't know. And I just want to know, I want people to know that, right? That you have your way. It doesn't have to look like Roxanne's way or my way. And they're different, right? You can tell that we have two very different ways, unique ways. I don't want to say different. We're just unique ways of communicating this. We have different language that we speak. Some people will resonate with you. Some people won't. Just find your people that resonate with you and listen, and you'll learn. That's what I have to say. I don't know.
Okay. Sava, you want to try one more time? Okay. This is the first time this has ever happened, so I'm honestly don't know what is going on. If anybody else can
Probably
try.
his microphone isn't working or something.
So, are you?
I've had a lot of experience on Zoom and,
Yeah.
using that since 2014, I think, or 15, whatever it was. Yeah, there's microphone issues
Yeah.
sometimes,
Okay.
What about asking who would you say are your biggest influences, so that any of the listeners, including myself, would go to listen to you, apart from yourselves too, obviously.
When I go ahead, Nat. Well, when I first woke up, I was following. There's a guy named Daryl Anka who channels a being called Bashar. So that I started watching that and listening, and it was just exploding in my head. And then I started channeling, and I created Odyssey of Ascension on my YouTube channel, and I just kept on going from there. So I looked at the Seth books. I read Seth. I read Ramtha. I read Eckhart Tolle. I read Edgar Casey, and I started, and then I started channeling, and now it's me. It's all me. But I needed those things to go. When I first saw a person channel, I was like, "Holy crap! I would love to be a channel." And then now I channel, and it's the most exciting experience, passionate thing for me to do for myself and evolve it through that. But people can evolve from stocking shelves at Walmart. I'm telling you, it's not what you do on the outside; it's the relationship you have with reality, which went back to my Seth material. If there's one book you would read, Bob, if you ever read, well, it's two of the books, either one is fine. Seth Speaks or The Seth Material. If you read those by Jane Roberts, read one of those books, and you can probably go into YouTube and someone has read it. You can actually get it, the audio idea. Someone will read some of the excerpts from it. This is material that's been poured over for 30, 40 years. I mean, this is 40-year-old material that's more valid today than it's ever been. So you'll understand and give you validity to something beyond the human context. So that might give you an idea of looking at yourself in that fashion. Because when I saw Bashar speak, and he was channeling, Daryl was channeling Bashar, which is an Essassani civilization. You can go on there and read about that story. And then I looked at that and I was like, God, that's it. Because it was anything but here. It wasn't emotional. It was here. It was like, holy crap. And it was something that never left because it never needed to be supported by my own efforts. I never need to do anything of conscious effort to make myself happy. We're not pursuing happiness. We're nature happy. We have to take down the shit in our own selves that says we're not. I discovered a state of being that's beyond polarity. So that's where my influence is. Natalie?
Thanks. That's awesome. So I'm not a channeler. I call myself clairvoyant. For those of you who don't know what that is, you can go ahead and take a look at that. My greatest influence actually were myself when I was a little girl and God. Oh, look, are you on?
You're on. So, Sava, can you say something?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. We hear you as soon as you turn on your video. Yes. Okay. So, would you like to comment?
I can't hear any. Hold on a second.
Headphones, it'll be.
Yeah, I'll wait. I won't. I'll wait to answer that, or people can follow me if they have that question, and I can give them tons of readings and all that.
Oh, okay. I can hear you. Can you hear us?
You're in the matrix.
Sava, can you
my
hear
network.
me?
Okay, yeah, because we're
So I've had a profound connection to God, Creator, all that since I was little, and kind of dropped in as this kind of like had knowing. I don't know how to say wisdom, knowing, whatever. But as I evolved through time, the people that impacted me, my friend Raven, who she's a tarot reader, she's one that I found. I spent my life searching for people who could teach me, and it took a long time. to actually find those individuals. And I don't know, Sava, when you're on, please just let us know and I'll stop.
Can you see and hear me?
Yes.
I
Yep.
can hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Oh, good. Okay.
So do you want to respond to anything that was said? Anything?
Well, so much. But who, like, what was the last thing you guys were talking about while I was trying to get in?
Well, just make your comment on whatever you want to say. No
Yeah.
particular
On
thing.
on religion, which are views on religion, where we came
Yeah.
from, and all that, and
So, I think that, organized religion was just like an ancient form of controlling the populace. And like I'm lesbian, and I've dealt a lot with like Christians and Muslims and stuff like that, and like I know my truth. And like I could never, even before, like, I was old enough to know my sexuality and stuff like that, I had to go to Sunday school and also go to Catholic church. And I could never, I couldn't adhere to it. I just couldn't. And like everybody was so crazy about it, and like really pushy. And the pushier they got, the less I could adhere to it. And it's kind of fascinating, really, but at the same time very annoying, and unnecessarily lowering the quality of my life. So I agree a lot with what Roxanne was saying earlier when I first started listening. However, we do need to be respectful of each other. Killing people and raping people, while that may be someone's truth, like, it doesn't mesh well with the rest of us. You know what I'm saying? So I think, as well as having, self-respect, we have to have respect for other people too. And I'll just leave it at that for now.
Well, and the idea of allowing people to be what they are, by no means am I condoning any action of a person. I don't want people just to do what the hell they want. So what do we have? We have laws in place and we have enforcement in place. That's part of the collective. But I know one thing: if we allowed ourselves to be the truth, we wouldn't nature ourselves into that. There would be no nature. I don't know if you guys remember. I'm pre-internet. So is Lisa. Okay, we grew up when there was no internet. So when internet came and all of a sudden hell's going to a handbasket because everyone likes porn, what happened? Well, the world didn't go to hell in a handbasket. People got better at sex. People got more comfortable with their own sexuality, not because of porn, because the access to the idea of their self-expression. And of course, the same came with LGBTQ, self-expression. So I don't want people to go out and rape, and that's the truth. But I'm not going to interrupt anyone and that idea. I'm not going to preach against that because those systems are already in place. And I'll let them figure it out. What I'm going to do is create my world. And my respect is because I'm my truth. I'm not going to go out of bounds. And these other people might not go out of bounds, and they might go out of bounds. But I can't control the world, because if we have one more law and one more ounce of control, then we're never going to discover ourselves. We're just going to keep confining ourselves. So you're right. I don't want people to go out there, and I want people to respect each other. But I can't control those people, because we created a world of lack. In the 80s, more people were created, more millionaires. That's all we talk about, how many millionaires we created in the 80s.
We did create a lot.
You know how many poor people we created? You know how many homeless we created? Because we classified.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden there was credit, middle class, upper middle class, lower, high class, poverty. Classes were never more disparaging. And then we started to divide, and we started to compare at a severe rate. But you know what that is? That's part to see ourselves. We see ourselves. Do we really want to be this as a collective? Do we really want to be this separated? So instead of making better laws, we created better science. And now we have DNA. And that exonerated and exposed an entire system and network of police enforcement, which is changing. And now this idea is changing. And the representation of people and the quality of people are changing. People acted like idiots because of the mask. People acted like idiots because of the vaccine. It doesn't matter what they acted like. They're finding their way home, and that's not mine to say right or wrong. It's mine to represent the enlightenment of myself. But if my anger and my pain needs to express, then express it and get to know yourself. Get to know yourself. You'll find something amazing. Go ahead now.
So, what do you guys think about the collective as a collective soul, and procreation keeps us tethered to this realm? Do you guys ever think about that? Do you have any
No.
thoughts on that?
I can tell you what we say in psychology, and that's specifically when we talk about the collective unconscious or the collective conscious, right? So Carl Jung is somebody you might want to read about. People hear about it. I don't like to stay in Jungian form because this was his alchemy, which is not. I don't agree with his alchemy completely, but it is a start, and it is a way for you to at least get some knowing, some understanding. And I highly encourage everybody to start reading. It's the one, it's going to get lost. And I can tell you right now, we need to be readers and not YouTubers. And you can if you want to, okay? This is not right, wrong, good, or bad. But you're going to come to know yourself a little better if you start to read instead of listening to YouTube and start finding the answers within. So Carl Jung talked about the collective unconscious, and he noticed it because he was working with a man who was insane, looking at the sun, and the man goes, if you look at the sun, you'll see a phallus. You'll see it. And he was like, what are you talking about? How did you see that? And an ancient tradition actually saw that, had talked about how the sun was like a phallus, right? And so he started to think, well, how did this guy didn't read this information? How does he know that this is true? So he came up with the idea of the collective unconscious. Now, the collective unconscious tells us that when we start to think something, it's already been thought. So for instance, let's say you, for instance, have a thought of, oh, I'm going to create this. And then all of a sudden you see it happening. And I think that Roxanne was talking about this earlier. It's another way to look at it, right? There's probably other people thinking the same thing. And so collectively, we think kind of similar. We're connected. If you want to see it like a web, right? Like a spider web. You can see that the spider, and there's in native traditions, we have the spider as being the great mother web, weaving her web, where we have all these parts that are interconnected, but we can't really tell what's going on. And if something happens in one part of the web, it impacts the other part of the web, but we may not know where that's coming from. That would be the collective as well, where we're experiencing things collectively, but we don't know it. This can be unconscious or conscious. So I would say read Carl Jung's stuff because he literally talks about different motifs. He also talks about how there's archetypal patterning that arise from the collective unconscious, but that doesn't go to the actual context of who you are. It's understanding how that's playing out within you and how it equates to the larger collective unconscious. So some people from psychology do hypnotherapy. That's another thing that you can look into for individuals who are interested in different ways. Hypnotherapy allows you to tap into your higher self, into these different archetypal patternings. Then you can take that patterning and equate it to these big myth stories that were narrated collectively throughout history. So we see native, storytellers that talk about these ancient myth stories. You can see how you fit into the equation, and you can kind of figure out where you're going next with those, because the patterns create themselves over and over and over again in the consciousness. So we just kind of keep playing out the same narratives, basically, is what they say, with different people. That's a way to think about it. I would say for you, if you're looking like, how do I fit in? Where's my collective unconscious? Who are my people? I would start pointing the finger at yourself and asking yourself those bigger questions, like, who am I? Where
So
do I
you know
fit?
Carl Jung. Do you know your personality type?
My personality type in terms of Carl Jung? No, I know that I am.
Actually, the Myers-Briggs one, actually, because it's a runoff of Carl
No,
Jung's work.
we don't do. So there's a new patterning that's come out. It's called emigrams, and that's more of an integral approach
That's
to
different.
psychology. So the personality, in terms of personality, I don't do personality. I do archetypal patterning, which is a little
So
bit
okay,
different.
so do you know about the MBTI though?
I know about Myers-Briggs personality.
Did you take it?
IJK. I don't know. There's like 50 different. What are they?
So you
Tell me
didn't
what
take
they
it.
are. I've taken a
Well,
bunch
there's
of them.
16.
Okay, wait, hold on. We need to start wrapping it up before we get into another subject, because we're
Yes.
past the hour 30 mark.
Yeah,
You
I was
can
going to
reach
ask.
out to me if you want. spiritandbrew@gmail.com if you're interested.
I was just about to say the next time I came on, we'll go around the room one last time. We've got like, I would like to keep it to an hour 45, so we're 9 minutes for everyone to give their closing statements.
Everyone,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Bob, go ahead.
just basically just to wrap up, if you feel you've learned anything, or just to give your closing statement. So I'll start with. We'll go with solid. We'll go clockwise. So solid.
I am seriously enlightened by what our panelists said. Roxanne, when we met you last week, I was like, And then I did look at, I got through 3.5.
Videos on YouTube?
Yes. And I was like, wow, but then today listening, you have me understanding more, and like Ba, it's still over my head. But it's interesting. And both you and Natalie have just given me again something to think about. I'm still gonna have my faith. I still believe in God. I still will refer to the Bible, but you've given me, I guess, a different way of looking at it. And as far as Saba goes, we talk all the time, so we're always in these conversations, whatever. But Saba, thank you for joining us, and Roxanne, Natalie, thank you for taking time out of your Saturday, especially the middle of the day, because I know that again, Saturday, so, but thank you.
Roxanne.
Okay, I muted myself. To wrap up, there's always a passion about a self in the moment. And when you hone your craft to recognize and accept the passion of yourself, you can start to see that it's all about you, and you're allowed to be that self and express that self. So do the due diligence and create an observer about yourself. Have the humility and surrender to the belief systems that incorporate emotional reaction, and start to look at this with an investigative mind of worth and say, you know what? I got a big fat ego, and it's only creating a reality with my expression. And if I want to have the same life using the same tools, all I have to do is look at my memory, and it's going to be the same summation. It's not the details, it's the feeling, how I feel about myself every day, every now. And if I have the willingness to observe that self in me, and I have the chance to evolve, like Lisa, you just said, I still have my faith. Well, yes, but you also know it's not permanent. Nothing is permanent. Because if anything was permanent and it was a standard, we would have already collapsed. We are unconditional evolutionists. So however you perceive this moment that we've given you in this collective now is up to you. And don't be afraid that you don't need for the first time guidance or an outside authority to direct you. You can find it within your own self. And it takes a lot of worth and a lot of truth and a lot of ideas of relationship, of evolution or transcendence of those beliefs to be that worthiness. But if you do, you will come to a space that doesn't deny itself, that accepts itself, and become beautiful to yourself. And that way you can represent that enlightenment to the collective. Because preaching ain't working. We're tired of preachers. It's about time that we're our own selves and we're our own worth. And however we get there is not going to be by conformity and standards. It's going to be by allowance and acceptance. That's what I got to say.
Awesome. For me, It's been a great show listening to Roxanne and Natalie in particular, obviously, with the, what would you guys call it? What would the stuff that you're kind of talking about? Is there a word? Is there, I know it's spiritual alchemy, but what about Roxanne? What would you call your rhetoric or your
I
message?
call this my work of self-discovery. There's three
Okay.
terms. We can call it ascension, enlightenment, or self-discovery that would encompass what it is. You know, in the school I'm created, I'm not going to, don't know if I'm going to do the school of thought, school of ascension, school of enlightenment, but something along that.
Okay.
You know, that kind of idea.
So I mean, it's really fascinating, and like I said, it's probably only because I've never stumbled across, other than Natalie, where we connected and done a show together. And I even said then, and I'm no further along since that interview, by the way, I'm sure you can tell, but it, to me, I'm still in the reality, I'm still in the now, and you guys are talking about like you've completed that. I know I'm not paraphrasing, but it sounds as if to me you guys have completed what I'm doing right now, and you're like above it all. And I'm not mean that in a condescending way. And I think that's where I will eventually get to, because I'm already seeing the signs there. Like I'm still on the journey of trying to seek truth, but I'm still loving what's going on in our world today, and in the history and all that. But there will come a point where I'll probably end up, entering your chats and commenting, and it's a better way of looking at life. And to me, there's nothing that you guys have said that I've felt the need to really push back on, which is a first probably. Other than, I obviously still have questions, but nothing that kind of sends alarm bells ringing. So I really appreciate the both of you coming on. I appreciate Sava as well. We've been meaning to have you on a show, and we'll have you back. Thanks for joining towards the end. So have you got a few last words for us, Sava?
I think we're all programs. I think we're AI. We've evolved, and if we do have a God, a creator, he incarnated himself, and then we crucified him, and then he's like, fuck this shit, and then he just like left, and like he's not coming back. We're all on our own, and that's what I think about that.
Awesome. So thanks, Salva. And I'll just close up by saying, read The Stellar Man. That might be a good book for you to read, The Stellar Man. You might want to write that down. Maybe if you like to read it, I don't know. Anywho, yeah, The Stellar Man. Please read it. I encourage everybody, especially you're talking about programming and computers and all that good stuff. I will just say this. First of all, I love you. I love all of you guys here. Thank you for inviting me. This was very last second for me. I didn't even really know what the subject was. I just know that you said, come on. I want to say this, Roxanne, thank you for the work that you're doing. I think it's important. And I think that it's important that we all do our work. We all have our voice. Lisa, you have your voice in the way that you bring it to your community. You have your voice in the way you bring it to your community. Sava, you have your voice in the way you bring it to your community, and Roxanne as well. And here's the deal. No one knows. This is what I'm going to tell you. As soon as somebody says they have the answer in the way, run the opposite direction, because I can tell you right now, nobody knows what the hell is going on. Right. And that's why
Is that why I don't have any friends?
That's right. So it's time to look at your internal self and trust yourself and look internally. As we said from the beginning, you hold the keys. The keys live within you. And you guys have the keys within you. You're all beautiful light. And so share it with the world, because the world they're craving it right now. Nobody knows where to go. Everybody's confused. Who do I listen to? What do I listen to? Well, listen to yourself. There you go. Listen to yourself. And I will end with that. If you guys want, another thing, if you guys want any information, please, you can reach out, spiritandcoffee.com. You can listen to my podcast. Also, my course is on there. And if you want to email me and you have questions and need support and books you want to read, because I have tons of books I can recommend, it would be spiritandbrew@gmail.com, spiritandbrew@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Awesome.
And Roxanne, is there a place where someone can reach you, or?
Odysseyofascension.com.
Okay.
And on YouTube, Odyssey of Ascension.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thanks, guys. It's been a great show. And this show will be uploaded probably the following weekend. We'll get all your contact stuff and put it in the description. But this has been a really good show. I hope you've all enjoyed it, and you'll be on the list for an invite back because you've all behaved very well. And bye, guys. See you in the next one.
And thank you
Thanks,
for
everyone.
everyone that
Bye.
was in the chat. So thank you. So we'll see you next.